People where civility is always in style. We're so glad that you've joined us today. It's really exciting when you think about all the good things that are going on in our community. And we get a chance on this show twice a week to bring in some really unique people to talk about some of those good things. And we're going to do that in just a moment. But, it's still a crazy time with Omicron and all of the things that are going on with that. We're just encouraging people, be as safe as you possibly can, do the right things, make sure that your family stays safe, because we're hearing some really crazy things about Omicron, and in particular with young ones. They've had some diabetes connected to catching Omicron. So you want to do everything you can to protect your kids and just make sure that they're as safe as possible. But it's really exciting. We've got with us today someone that is a really good friend of mine, Lisa Casarez Austin, and she is with Angels of Grace, which is a family foster care agency. And we're going to talk with her. And I also have my lovely bride, Dot Powell, author and former principal in Fresno Unified. So we've got three of us here today going to just talk about one of the things that I think is so important to all of us, and that is, how do we take care of our kids? And we've got lots of kids that are struggling. Lisa, it is so nice to have you with us.
Oh my gosh, this is just a blessing. I was so delighted to see your wife here, and I'm the president of her fan club.
Well, thank you.
As well as you, it's always so good to be in your presence. You have such great energy. The Holy Spirit just lives so beautifully inside of you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. We're going to talk about the agency because you're doing some amazing work. But first of all, just wanted to talk about you a little bit. Where did you grow up? How did you get into this business of fostering youth and helping kids, especially babies? And when we're going to talk about on your website, there's a way to go there, and you've got a lot of needs that are listed, and people can pick a part of it and send it in, or send money or cash or things. But tell us a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up?
Well, I grew up here in Fresno, California, born and raised, and I grew up in a farm worker family, a traditional Hispanic family. So my goal in life was to get married and have children. And that was probably like the epitome of what my success in life was going to be.
Sure.
And so I got married at 18 years old. It was planned when I was 12. It was like 18. I turned 18 on May 27th.
Wow.
1963 was my birthday. And then on June 27th, I was married. So 1 month after my 18th birthday.
Right after high school?
Right after high school. And so I was very excited. You see all the movies, Cinderella lives happily ever after.
Sure.
Unfortunately, that did not happen in my life. I ended up in a lot of domestic violence.
Wow.
It was a very tragic time in my life. I was, in and out of medical attention because of whatever the situation came out of. So it was pretty tragic. I had two children, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Boy.
And the police was always at my house. And there was a lady that lived across from me that had many children that was also in domestic violence. And so she would come and she would, help me get through it. And I helped her. So we became Yaya sisters.
I love it.
Whenever she was putting, things on my face to cover the cuts, she would say, yeah. In our culture, it's kind of a term of it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So she was my Yaya sister. And one day, her ending was tragic.
Oh boy!
And it was all because of domestic violence.
Sure.
And so that really was the aha moment in my life. And so one night I went to sleep, and he came home, and it was very, very. There was a lot of domestic violence, and so my son, who was 4 at the time, went and got my daughter out of the crib. She was 2, and put her in the Chevy Chevette, and got my purse and screamed that he had the keys. And so we ran off in the middle of the night.
Wow.
And ended up in the middle of Fresno with no shoes on and a robe and 50 cents in my pocket.
You just escaped then.
Escaped.
Yeah.
Well, the police officer had given me a business card to the Marjorie Mason Center.
Oh, wow.
And so I was on a street called Orange Street, and I pulled over. I was hardly any gas in my car. And I cried out to God, and I asked God to be my husband, my provider, my protector.
Sure.
And as God would have it, I reached into my pocket to pull out some tissue because I was just crying, and I found the card. And so back in the days, and most people that are young probably don't believe this, but there used to be payphones. And so I looked up, I was in front of a market, and I looked up, and there was a payphone. And so I called the number that was on the card. I didn't need my 50 cents because it was a free 800 number, and they actually came and picked me up and took me to the Marjorie
That's
Mason
an amazing
Center.
story.
It's a God story.
Absolutely.
Because when I got to the Marjorie Mason Center, they put shoes on my feet, they fixed me all up, and they, made me feel like I was a human again.
Yeah.
And then ended up in the middle of this dark place in my life. And so I went to the hospital that day, and they watched my children while I went, and just to make sure I didn't have any fractures or anything.
Sure.
And there was a nurse that was there who was seeing all the people coming in and out of the ambulances. And so she was phenomenal. I just looked at her and I thought, wow, look at her. She was just amazing. So she ended up taking care of all these people. And in the middle of that, she came up and told me how important I was. That It wasn't that I wasn't important. She needed to take care of people that were bleeding and coming out of. And so she looked at me and she told me I was beautiful, that God had a plan for my life, and that this was a bump in the road. We were going to get to the other side. And she went to check my tonsils, and she got real close to my face, and I grabbed her hands and I asked her to pray for me. And she said a little prayer.
Wow. And
I always remember her blue eyes. She had the most beautiful eyes. They were so crystal. And I never saw her again, but she poured that hope into me and love and everything I needed,
sure,
which was enough for me to kind of sustain myself through life. Unfortunately, fortunately, I should say, I found out I was pregnant that day. So I was pregnant with my third child.
So two with you, one on the way.
One on the way, and I was determined never to go back into that situation. Yeah. And so I ended up my journey ended up going into the projects because I couldn't go anywhere. I was shaming the family by leaving my husband. So there was a lot of shame connected to that.
Wow.
And
so blame went your way, even though you were the one that was the victim.
And so I remember sitting around in the Marjorie Mason Center with a lot of other women like myself, and a commercial came out. It says, "Are you lost? Are you confused? Do you not know where you're going?" I said yes to all the questions, and it was City College was taking applications. And so there was a little song that went with the number, which is 442-4600. So all day I walked around with that song in my head.
That's great.
Finally made the phone call, and the person that spoke to me said, "Come on down, we'll figure it out." And so I took my kids, and that was the journey. I was going to become a dental hygienist, but once I became a student, I was so excited and wanted to help women that were in abuse, and even men. So sure. I started doing, helping with, I learned how to do restraining orders and things like that. And so my counselor, who was Pauline Fuller, said, "You need to go into social work." And I said, "Well, how long is that going to take?" And she said, "It won't take that long. You just have to go to Fresno State." So she changed my classes up so they were transferable.
Yeah.
And it took me 15 years to get my master's. A little side note was that, I always ended up going with the foster children.
Right.
I thought I was going to work with women, and God kept sending me towards the rescued children. So.
Well, and having two of them that were in great need and another one on the way.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you that the students at Fresno City College actually, because I had to take my kids to class with me, would help me with my children. But they were 18. They thought it was so cool that I had all these kids. So we had a sign in, sign out sheet. They would help me with the kids while I go to class.
Yeah.
And then my baby was born. And so I had cloth diapers because I couldn't afford anything else. And so they got tired of that. So they'd all give me a quarter at the end of the week. We bought Pampers and they helped raise the little one. Then we found out there was childcare on campus. So we were able to get the two older ones there. But the little one, the students kept helping me with. So when I finally graduated with my master's, I made a copy of it and sent it to all my friends because they stayed connected to me for all the years. And, I was the only one that got a master's, and it was because they all helped me. I always say this is because you were all, because even when they stopped going to school, they would watch my children at their houses. Come and leave the kids while you, go to school. So I was the community. It took a village to get my master's.
You have done so many great things with what you're doing right now. But when you look back, God had a plan for you. And what you went through gave you a heart and an empathy for babies and kids that probably would have been harder to get. It's interesting how he takes a really negative situation and gives you just this drive and heart to take care of those little ones.
Well, he doesn't waste our hurts.
Yes.
And that's why in 2000, when I finally received my master's, I started Angels of Grace Foster Family Agency. The Lord said, now it's my turn.
Yeah.
This agency belongs to him, and I get to work. I have a great boss. And I had no idea how this was going to happen. We had a bunch of attorneys that were friends of mine that helped me with the nonprofit status.
Yeah.
And then one of the attorneys actually let me go into his office. And so his secretary started helping me. The state, because I had so much experience, allowed me to go into his library. And we turned that into a little foster family agency. And
Wow,
then I had
fantastic.
6 months to get into a building after that. And it was just God all the way through.
Yeah.
And it's this community, because my number one focus was to have items available, because I knew what it was like to go out in the middle of the night with no shoes on,
Yeah.
and, be just so broken. And these kids, when they come to me, it's beautiful that I can put shoes on their feet. A lot of them come full of head lice because
Yeah.
there's a lot of neglect. We have, the medication in the office. We have what you call it, like a little Walmart, right? Community keeps donating, and things are not necessarily new, but they're gently used. And so to them, it's something great.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Diapers, formula, head lice lotion, hygiene products, anything our kids need. And a lot of the kids that come to me, because there isn't a shelter in Fresno, a lot of them come in in the middle of the night.
Sure.
And coming out of domestic violence, meth labs, or whatever they're being rescued out of. And so we provide what they need. And then in 3 days, we have what you call a team decision-making meeting with
Wow.
the county. And most of them are going to go with grandma, who's on Social Security,
Of course.
who's not going to receive any benefit because
Right.
now they're not in the system. And we help grandma with, trying to get her through that.
Well, you and I have talked about early in your career as a professional, the lack of diapers, the lack of those kinds of things, and folks, we're gonna take a break here, but we're gonna be right back, and we're gonna learn more about some really good things happening with Angels of Grace. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down.
Oh,
What's that?
This is Powell to the People on the best talk in town. Here's
Hey.
Larry Powell.
And welcome right back. We're glad to have you back with us. We talk about politics, education, religion, technology, sports, values, and healthy communities. And today we're continuing a conversation with Lisa Casarez Austin from Angels of Grace. And boy, you have an amazing story. More people need to hear it, that you were down and out. It was probably as low as you could possibly get in life. And yet you had the drive to go find something. You now have a master's degree. You're doing some amazing things in the community. And it's remarkable. Dot, you're here with us today as well. We have a daughter, Caitlin Carter, and Caitlin had foster kids. And so we clearly understand. Remember what it was like when she first would bring the kids home?
yes. We'd all fall in love with those little kids.
Yeah. It was interesting. One of them was born in a toilet to a meth mother. Katie found her, basically met her at the hospital, newborn, meth addicted, affected and impacted, and she spent 30 days with her. That she now is our granddaughter.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And
She's 12.
yeah, she's 12 years old. She has a brilliant voice. I mean, she's just got an amazing singing voice. So we're really blessed. So we clearly get the work that you do. And then as a pastor at People's Church, I see hurting people all the time, and the needs that folks have for someone to step up and take care of them during these moments of crisis. And so what you do is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, and you were making a list. You were sharing with us a list there of some of the things that are needed on a regular basis. What are those again?
We always appreciate gently used items, so a lot of the people that, especially boys, I don't know what it is about boys clothing. We really need that because boys will wear out their clothes to the end. Girls, we get a lot of girls clothing, which is we're blessed by as well. So people will donate their gently used items, which is a tax deduction because we are a nonprofit.
Yep.
And diapers, formula, hygiene products, undergarments, we always need. Those have to be new because those
Sure.
are special. And so we always need head lice lotion because for some reason, these kids, if they come infected, we need 2 or 3 treatments. And it's expensive. A lot of people say, well, Medi-Cal will pay for it. But 3 or 4 days later, the whole house is infected. So
Yeah,
we
exactly.
automatically get them cleaned up right away. I've learned how to be the master. They call me in Spanish, I'm the queen of matapiojos, which means I'm the queen of killing lice because I'm really good. And I'm very blessed. I've never gotten the head lice because sometimes you
Sure.
can get the head. And I put a shower cap on and whatever it takes to clean up my babies.
I love it.
And then I learned that mayonnaise works real well. So now I give them beauty treatment. So
At the same time.
So they have really, the kids, sometimes they hate sitting there
Yeah.
So I'll put a little timer on, and every time it dings, I'll give them a quarter or something. So it's a lot of motivation. Larry, I can honestly say that we've received lots of recognition in our community, but it's because of the community. We cannot do this alone. And I think God is very much reminding me that every day. I get up, I pray, and I ask God, where am I supposed to go today? What am I supposed to do? This is a time in the world where we're seeing a lot of darkness. I'm seeing a lot more than I've seen in years past. So this is a time that we're supposed to shine the brightest because people need hope.
Absolutely.
And that nurse who was there for those moments in my life, I saw and I admired how much she was doing. And if she could see something great in me, it was enough for both of us until I got into this place of my life where I could now trust that God knew what he was doing when he created me, right?
Yep.
Because I always question if I made the right choice.
Now you're being that person for a whole lot of other people that nurse was.
Now I got to tell you, now you know the rest of the story. I was at my Sunset Rotary meeting, about 5 or 6, maybe longer. There was a deputy. I don't know if you know Pat Farmer.
Yes, very well.
Okay.
Great guy.
Pat walked in and he was presenting to our Rotary, and he was talking about, did some lighting in our community and just talking about triathlon stuff. And he had a group of people there that love him. So one of the people in that group was his wife. And so I got up and I talked about our Luau of Love, which is an annual fundraiser we have every year. This year it's going to be on September the 24th at Tesoro Viejo. So anybody interested can give us a call. But she got up and she came up to me and she said, I'm not working right now. I would love to help you for this luau. And she's talking to me and I'm looking at her and I'm looking into her eyes. I said, were you ever a nurse? And she said, yes, I was a nurse in the old hospital. I said, do you remember this little Mexican lady that came in and she was all beat? And she looked at me. She said, I prayed for her.
Oh,
I said,
wow.
Are you serious?
Mm-mm.
So her name is Jana Farmer. God sent me the nurse back all these years later.
Is that
She's
right?
one of my very dear friends. I love her to death.
You reconnected.
And we reconnected. That was a God story.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I've been there for her as well. And, this journey of life, you just never know how the teeter-totter is going to go.
No, exactly.
And so she's a very dear friend of mine. And she's had to have surgery because she's fell off of a ladder. So when she has surgeries, I'm praying for her. And we've become very good friends. Since then, Pat's retired.
Yes.
And so it's a God story. It totally is. And so she was feeling like her life really wasn't significant because she wasn't a nurse anymore.
Wow.
And I told her, every time I pick up a child, I tell them, you're beautiful. God has a plan for you. This is a little bump in the road. We're going to get to the other side. Every single
All those
child
things
hears
she
that.
told you.
poured into me. So you have touched thousands of children. And she was just amazed by that. It blessed her heart.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
So are you having a little, okay.
Well, I am literally falling on the floor.
Okay.
It's like,
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah, we're
Sorry.
good. Okay, no problem. We're gonna keep going in here.
These chairs are a little bit funny.
We've got a really exciting thing taking place. Lisa, it's pretty amazing what's been going on with everything that's happening. When I look at the list of items needed, diapers, formula, clothes, shoes, cribs, car seats, socks, underwear, lice medication, cash donations, I mean,
And
it's a
McDonald's gift
big
cards.
list.
McDonald's gift cards are really important because a lot of our kids, we might not get all the kids for Angels of Grace, but the county has children that are sitting there.
Yes.
So we're able to give those gift cards to those children as well. And we were able to share the blessings
Good.
with the county.
Good.
So,
Yeah. Well, it's pretty amazing when you think about all of the things that are out there, the needs that are out there, and then the kids actually get the help that they need when they get to you, and they didn't even know they were going to get it.
and the grandmothers and the grandparents, because
Yeah.
they feel like at this point, they feel like their life is not their life is pretty dark at that point. But when we're able to come alongside them and help them, and then their biological children, the parents of these children,
Yes.
receive the services that they need so that they can get off drugs, so that they can get out of domestic violence, and they see their life later on down the road, and those kids are back in the homes with their children in a
Right.
healthy environment.
And
They are
feeling
blessed,
good. Wow.
and then they're bringing the kids clothes. And so it kind of we see a lot of good. I tell my social workers, we're not about judging people, because of in that moment in my life, if they would have given me drugs instead
Right.
of Jesus, I could have been the biggest drug addict, because you just want the pain to stop.
Yeah.
And so we
exactly.
don't judge people. We love them to Christ, and we love them through the situation they're going through. And hopefully one day they can pay it forward as well.
Boy, that's such a good story, of what's going on. How many kids do you deal with in a typical day or week?
It
or-
just depends. Like last night we got 2 children, and it's for some reason it's about 3 a.m. that
Wow.
we get. There's something about 3 a.m. So it just depends. I'm getting older now. I started this journey when I was much younger, and now I'm 58 years old. And
Yeah.
God says that my yoke is easy. So we've now have social workers that were my interns that are now working alongside me.
Wow.
And now they go out. So I don't have it 24 hours. And now that I'm married, it would be a little harder for me to do that,
Sure.
because now I have responsibility with my husband, and so God just provides. He's
Yeah.
a God that doesn't overwhelm you with what he asks you to do,
Right.
and he brings people alongside you, just like he's brought this community.
Well, I was looking at some of your folks. You got Gloria, Ellie, Elizabeth, Lorena, Maria, and Carla.
and then all the students from Fresno State, from Fresno Pacific, that are getting their degrees in social work.
Yeah, I love
So
that.
we've been blessed. Even City College now is sending students that are going into social work. So
Is that right?
we feel like we're grooming them, and it's exciting because this is truly social work. I mean, picking up kids and getting them,
Yeah.
in that place when they're dark, their darkest moments, and you put shoes on their feet and you get them all fixed up, and you
Sure.
tell them that life is going to be okay. And then we have these visits with the families that we have to supervise. And the families come in, and Angels of Grace has always been a facility that looks like you're going to grandma's house.
Oh,
It's
I
a
love it.
home.
Yes.
So they come in, we're able to bake with them. We're able to make sure that the kids can have that feeling of this is how we teach parents to read a book to their children. A lot of them have never done that because it's not been done for them.
Yeah, and how important that is.
Yeah, just uniting and connecting, and let's sit around the table and eat. Let's break bread together. And
Yep.
we're able to do all that because we were in a home. We're in a place that looks like grandma's house.
And you've got a new location now.
We do. We're at 6179 North Palm, which is just north of Bullard.
Yes.
Beautiful place. It was a CPA firm, I think, before, and
Okay.
so we moved in. We used to be in the Tower District, but the place we were in sold, so we had to relocate during the pandemic, which was very
Oh, boy,
challenging.
what a challenge.
But God provided.
Yeah.
And he provided a really nice place, and we actually were able to keep the clothing closet because there's an area there that which is a 2-car garage that we've turned into a little Walmart.
Yep.
And we have volunteers that come out that help us keep it in order. So when I come in at 2 a.m, I can go right to the size 2 little girls' clothes, and get what I need. And so it's all about community, and I'm so humbled to be a part of this team.
It's really exciting. We're going to talk a little more after our next break about partners. You have, I looked on your website, you've got a lot of partners, folks who step up with you. So we're going to talk about that, folks. This is Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down.
We're so glad that you've joined us for our third segment today. This is prior to the Super Bowl, so we get a weekend where we don't even have to think much about football, and we can actually talk about some things that really make a difference in life. And we're so fortunate today to have with us Lisa Casarez Austin, and I love the last name Austin, which has been added recently.
Yes,
Lisa.
2.5 years ago.
Yeah, 2.5 years, and so it's really neat. But she runs the Angels of Grace Family Foster Agency, and you did a lot of other things before you got to this job and things. Tell us a little bit about what was the preparation that got you to be in charge of Angels of Grace?
Well, I was blessed enough to go into Fresno State and receive my master's. Before that, I got my bachelor's in social work. So there was a lot of internship opportunities that you have to do.
You're sure.
So I did an internship at one of the schools here in town, and it was at Lowell, and I was able to work with students there. And then because I was having to work, and when I was getting my master's, you couldn't get paid. Right. When you were doing your internship.
Right.
So I had to work in the day. I worked at Fresno State. I was a student peer advisor.
Okay.
So worked with students and got an opportunity to empower students that way. But then at night, I did my internship in emergency response.
Wow.
With Child Protective Services. And that's where I got to really see the need that we had in our community.
Well, and CPS sees some really tough cases.
We do.
Yeah.
And we're in the meth capital of the world. I don't know if people get that.
Yeah.
And there's about 60,000 children in foster care in California. So it's a huge undertaking. And I really believe that this was my calling. This is where God kind of guided me. So it's under the anointing, because I get up. I would be amazing. I would wake up like just a few minutes before the county would call me. And then they would say, "Don't you sleep?" Well, I was kind of already up, and then I'd get a call, get dressed, and go out and rescue the children.
You had your own alarm clock.
It was, I really believe it was the Lord. And then I'd pray about, where am I supposed to put this child, and the Lord would guide where to put the children. We recently received a National Adoption Recognition Award in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
For the amount of children. We've had over 400 children adopted since we started the agency in 2000.
That's remarkable.
That's God.
It is.
That is God, because that's a forever family.
And that's 400 lives that are changed. Because I know you, and you're going to put them, where they're going to be successful.
Yes. And I love hearing the stories. And now with Facebook, a lot of them follow me, so I get to see them living the best life and their families, and they grow up so fast.
Yes.
That's one thing about people. I've had a lot of families that have tried to have children, and they come to us as like, okay, well, I can't have children. I might as well help children.
Right.
So we're not an adoption agency, but a lot of times if the families don't get themselves together like the courts ask them to,
sure,
then these children, if they can't find a family member, are released for a permanent plan, which is adoption.
Gotcha.
And these families are able to adopt. Now, it's amazing how God just connects them. The families kind of look like each other, and we keep siblings together, and it's amazing. And I used to get very challenged by the situation that sometimes I would get a call, so-and-so, we have 4 of her kids, she just had another baby. And then I would kind of get like, well, why do you keep having babies? I would get upset. And one day I went to pick up a baby that we already had 4 of the siblings with another family. And the family, they were missionaries in Africa. And they never could have children. So they had these 4 children they adopted.
Wow.
And then I get called out to pick up another little girl that was just born from the same mom.
Same mom?
So this child was going to come into the system. And they used to call at the hospital, they call me the burrito lady, because I'd go in and I'd get the babies. Now it's like I had them. I'd have to go in with a car seat, with the clothing, wrap them up, feed them. And I'd wrap them up like little burritos, because that's how I do things. So I would take the baby, and this particular baby was under 5 pounds. So they have to put him on a testing car seat and for an hour to make sure that they're going to be okay. So when I walked in, the nurse was testing this beautiful little girl.
Sure.
And I went off. I was like, I can't believe she had another baby. No, I'm going to. And just like that, the Lord put a check in my spirit. Like, you know what? You don't get to choose who gets to be born.
Yeah.
You take these children where I tell you, and do it with love. And so I literally felt that, and I kind of just stopped myself, and the nurse looked at me, and I said, the Lord just told me I don't get to pick. And she looked at me, she goes, I'm so glad he said that, because she's so cute. So I grabbed this beautiful little girl, and I took her to the home. They were all waiting for me outside when I got there. She was like a little Cinderella coming to the party, And the foster mom, who was now the adopted mom, came up to me, and she was just in tears. She goes, isn't that just like our God? He would bring me a newborn baby, because the other children were older when she got him.
Yes.
And so the rest of the story is all these children are serving the Lord. This particular little girl now she sings it in the church. And, God has a plan.
Absolutely.
And who are we to judge or even question what God is doing? So now I get up whenever he calls me. I pick up the children. If they've had 20 children and this is a number 21, then I just, in love, take those children where God tells me, because there's a plan for all of them.
Yeah.
And how they get here is, that's between them and God. I have it's not any of my concern. My concern is to go from A to B, and then hopefully they grow up and do what God's called them.
No, exactly. Now you have a board that you work with.
I do.
Yeah. And I understand you have a really good board.
I do. I'm very blessed.
Yeah.
God selected each and every one of them. One of them, our board president is Dr. Gregory Watts. And Dr. Watts he's retired now, but he was the doctor at Valley Children's Hospital. Now this is, you know what? I tell these stories.
That's amazing.
I tell these stories and it almost feels like if I wasn't there, I would say like, are you serious? Is that really happen? But as God is listening to me, my daughter, when I ended up living in affordable housing on the project, I was going to school and I was sitting outside. The baby was really small. Alicia was, she was probably about 3. there was a gang fight, and she got hit in the head with a metal bat.
Oh, boy.
And I grabbed her, wrapped her little head up. I had this big station wagon, put her in the car, put my other son in the car. We went to the Old Valley Children's Hospital.
Sure.
Dr. Watts was the doctor that came up, and
You've
he saw
gotta
me
be
walk
kidding
in with
me.
a backpack and my kids. And he asked me if I was going to school, and I said I was, but I was getting ready to quit because it was too much. He says, "Mama, you can't quit. You got to keep going to school. This is, your kids are depending on." He put 12 stitches on my daughter's head, put her on a little papoose, and he says, "My wife would love you." And I'm looking at this man going, "Really? Who does that?" Right? So the next day she called me. Mary Watts is her name. She picked me up at Fresno City College. We went and had lunch, and we became really good friends. They were the ones that introduced me to Christ with love.
Wow.
And so they would invite me to their house for holidays, and she just decided to pour into me. And she had a degree, a BA in microbiology that when he was going to medical school, just so that they could have something to talk about. But she wasn't using it. She had
right?
2 children.
I love that.
And her kids were my kids. So I would watch their kids, and we became family. And I convinced her to go back to school and get her master's in social work. I said, "Look at everything you've done for me," because she really poured into me and helped me with school and everything. She goes, "Oh, no, I don't want to do that." And I said, "Pray about it, because you would be so good." So she went back to school and got her master's in social work, and then got her license. She became an LCSW. So she sees my kids.
Is that right?
So she actually provides services to our kids that are coming in. And Dr. Watts, when I told him God had this vision, and so he became our president, and we have favor with Valley Children because everybody he worked in the ER.
Yeah.
So it was all the way God just turned it together, So we've been blessed. Only God could have done that.
No, absolutely. I love how full circle things come, from being in that situation. It's just crazy.
Amazing. And so, I need to write a book, because sometimes I tell these stories and I encourage myself, because I'm like, wait, if God did that then, he can do it now. Because now we have a whole different challenge with this, with the pandemic and kids coming in, and it's scary, because you're like, am I going to go home and get my husband sick? Because, there's questions that we just keep trusting God every day.
I love it. Well, Dot, you and I went through a bit of heartbreak with Katie, our daughter, when she had a couple of boys that she fostered, and father was in prison. And during that time, it was almost 2 years.
Yeah, we had them from birth to 18 months.
Yeah.
Twins.
And what happened with that?
Well, the judge ruled that the birth mother couldn't get them back. And he also ruled that when the father got out of prison, if he wanted, he had rights. And that's what happened. So
basically, our daughter from birth to 18 months had the boys. They were ours, ours, and they were returned to the father, after prison. And 18 months with a child, they're yours.
Sit up, walk, talk,
all the things that you do as a baby, and you know that. And that was just heartbreaking. And it was so interesting how our daughter didn't allow that heartbreak to stop her from having the next set and continue to work with foster kids until she has 2 of her own, naturally, and 2 adopted. And the 4 of them are spectacular kids. So we clearly understand the heart that it takes.
It takes a lot of faith too, because I tell my family, sometimes we're a season and sometimes we're a forever family.
Yeah.
But it is hard when they come in and they're with you, especially when you've bonded with them. But if you think about how important that development part of their life was and how she poured into them.
No, exactly.
And she's changed the trajectory of their life forever, because that was her assignment from God. Assignments from God are not always easy.
No,
but
that's
God,
for sure.
But if he takes you to it, he'll get you through it, and you'll heal and you'll be whole. And you never know, like me with Jana, right? Years later, she came back to me. God brought us back. And it's a beautiful relationship, because she was such an important part of the development of my life. So I'm going to pray that God would bring those children back to you guys, and you'll be able to see them.
Chance to see them. Yeah, we were able to find them on Facebook and saw a little bit. So, maybe down the line, the Lord will do that. Well, listen, you're listening to Powell to the People with Civility is Always in Style. We're going to be right back, and you're going to hear more from Lisa Casarez Austin.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of good people in there. And then recently, Miss Clovis, Caitlin, I always forget to say, Kaylee. Let me look up Miss. I want to make sure I say it right. She did a big blanket drive for us.
Is that right?
And she delivered 608 blankets.
Wow.
Miss Clovis, and she worked alongside the Clovis Police Department. Kaylee Autumn, say her.
Miss Clovis.
Mm-hmm. Kaylee, ALDA. Kaylee. We got a lot of these blankets, so we ended up sharing them with Fresno County, and
That's fantastic.
with I was going to call Wilma today and take her some for Casa because we're
Sure.
all partners.
Yeah.
So there were so many blankets we got to share them, and then we have some of the ministries that do the box ministries where we got the little ones and they wrapped them in there and send those off. So God just spread that
I love it.
everywhere.
I love it.
We were, and the kids when they get them, I told you I got some babies last night.
Yeah.
And I showed your wife the picture. They're holding the blankets to their face, so you can't see it. But they were able to. So we're giving blankets and teddy bears right now.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, Jose, good to go. Last 12.
People on the best talk in town.
Hey, welcome back to our last segment today. Boy, how time just flies. This is Powell to the People, where civility is always in style, and you can always catch us Saturdays at 4, Sundays at 6. We also have Good News with Larry Powell. Nothing but good news, and I'll tell you, we need good news these days, and that's Monday through Friday at 10 and at 4 right here on KXEX 1550 AM. Well, Lisa, we're down to our last segment, how quickly the time goes. I know that you have some amazing partners. I was looking through your website, and from Therapy Dogs International, First Southern Baptist Church, Girl Scouts, Sigala, Ideas Plus Promotional Products, Exchange Club. I mean, it goes on and on of people who have stepped up. Lisa Smitkamp, our DA, is on there. I mean, just a lot of people, Granville Homes. Pretty amazing that you've been able to garner this collection of people who are helping with this and literally changing the trajectory of a lot of lives as a result.
It's amazing. Just last night, my Sunset Rotary, they had a fundraiser in Clovis, a casino night. They were able to give me a check for $10,000.
Wow. Wow.
And that's amazing because that is how we're able to get our kids into special classes.
Sure.
Some of them, we have cheerleaders that we're able to, these are our kids.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we want to make sure that they get the best life, no matter if they're in foster care. And
Yep.
those things cost money. And
Yeah.
so the community, and, a lot of times the families have had a grandchild maybe that ended up with me, and nobody's going to talk about it because confidential.
Sure.
So they get to see the services that are their grandchildren or their somebody in their family received.
Yeah.
And they come back and they pay it forward because they want other children that are going to be in a place to receive
Sure.
the same kind of treatment.
What's your website again?
It's angelsofgrace.com.
Angelsofgrace.com. You can go there, and there are all kinds of bits of information and pages available to you. You can see that list of things that you need, all of that. And, we're never enough money. There's always a shortage. So anything you can do, folks, to help, just go there and you'll find a way to donate. But, before we leave, we've got a few minutes left. You've got to have some special stories about some people who have come through your agency. And do you have a story or two of some who came from craziness and now have solid lives again?
We have a lot of stories. One in particular, she came to me when she was 7 years old.
7 years old.
And she was living, in with her mom. It was a dark place that she came out of. She came to me, had never been to school, so we got her into all these special programs,
Wow.
Sylvan, and she was considered developmentally delayed when she went to school because she'd never been to school.
Sure.
So she came to us. We ended up loving on her. Her parents never got it together. So she stayed with me till she turned 18 years old. And
Wow.
and at 18, back in the days, the kids were on the streets because there was no plan B.
Sure.
Since then, we have AB 12. Now they can stay with us till they're 21. So we opened up a safe haven home, which was, we operated for 8 years. Every month I had to come up with $3,500, and I had no idea how I was going to come up with it because these were kids that were aged out.
It's a lot of faith
And
in the
so
Lord.
every month it came in. Every month for 8 years, God
Wow.
provided. Sometimes it was $2 more. It was a little bit, but we ended up. It was a faith thing every time.
Yeah.
Anyway, she stayed with us. She ended up going to City College. Was Goldie of the Year. Was second in the state for javelin throwing. Was very smart. Ended up going to St. Kate's. Got a full ride scholarship. When she went to that college, my board, including Dr. Watts, bought her, the laptop. She went like all the other kids went with the designer clothes, because these
Yeah.
are kids going into a private college.
Of course.
So she didn't go in she had everything she needed.
That's a great story.
She went on and she was very athletic. So she ended up going into the military. One day I'm sitting in my office and a Secret Service person comes in. I'm like, we do everything right. We get audited. Why are you here? Well, he was there to do a reference check on her.
Oh, wow.
And she became Secret Service, became a Secret Service for Biden, for Trump, and now she's with our new president.
Yeah.
And so she recently came down to Fresno. She had dinner with the Wattses, and I haven't seen her yet. She's still here in Fresno, so I'm hoping she reaches out. She says that she now has another opportunity, so she's going to go into a high level of security. So
Wow.
this is one of our kids.
Yeah.
And you know what's beautiful? We went out to dinner the last time she came down, and she was so cute. We were having dinner, and she took the bill because I can afford this now, so she took the bill and she laughed and she said, I used to be considered developmentally delayed. Now I'm the intelligence of the United States of America. And the house that we had in Safe Haven, Gloria Kay and her sister Cookie, they were the designers, Wagerman.
Yeah.
So they're on my board. Yeah. So they went in and they designed this home. It was phenomenal. So her room was black and white. It was designed. They designed it beautifully. The whole house was. I wanted my girls to feel like they were royalty. Their father was a king, and they had to live to that standard.
Sure.
So my ladies always had to live at that level, and it was God because He was providing everything. I mean, every month I was like, only God could do this, right?
Yeah.
So they felt like they were special. Anyway, her room was just beautifully designed. If you know these women, they're women of excellence. And I would see that she had like a day bed, and it always looked so beautifully. But one day I'm walking by and she's laying on the floor. I said, "What are you doing?" She says, "I don't want to mess up my bed. I want it to stay this way." Well, so she recently purchased a home in Washington, D.C., and it's all black and white. The whole house,
Is that right?
the interior is. So those
Yeah.
moments were happy for her.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that's just one of my many happy stories.
Yeah.
And so our kids do that, just like Jana, who poured that greatness into me. And the community, the churches that come in, and the women that, pour into our kids,
Yeah.
and mentors that come in and let them know that they're special. The enemy, he always wants to mess us up with the lie that we're not worthy.
Sure.
Once you know who you are and that you have value and you have worth and God has a plan for your life, you begin to live that way. And so once you have that, it allows you to become all that God created you to be. And that's what
Absolutely.
we hope to do with the children that God puts in our path.
Well, and our listeners need to know something real simple. How do they get a kid to you? What's the process?
Well, we work along Child Protective Services.
Okay.
So we're in the whole San Joaquin Valley. We work with Madera County, Fresno County, and Kern County. Actually, we haven't had children from Kern County in quite some time. We're kind of staying in
Okay.
this area with the way the
And there are
COVID
plenty within this area.
within our area. There's a lot of children. So they give me a call. The only one that can put a hold on a child is a police officer. So
Right.
a police goes out to a home. There's domestic violence. There's a meth lab. People
Sure.
are getting arrested. There's children in the home. So then they call Child Protective Services after they put the hold. We're contracted with them. They call us up, and
Gotcha.
then we put them in homes that we feel are going to be a good match for the children. We don't take all the calls
Right.
but we work alongside them. So that's how it works. And then the children are going to have the opportunity to be with us for 3 days at least. And then at that time, once all is settled, they have a team decision-making meeting. The county calls a meeting between the families and anybody that can provide service or care for this child. It
Right.
doesn't have to be a blood relative anymore. It can be a mentor placement, the
Okay.
neighbor, or somebody in the church.
So
can
someplace
come.
they have some
They have-
familiarity.
yes, they
Yeah.
can, and that's always the goal, to return the children to the family
Yeah,
that they
like
know.
that. Yeah, that's
And
really
if that
good.
doesn't work, then they stay with us, and then it goes to court in 6 months, and the family has to do what the courts asked them to do. And if they do it, the children start to have visits. They start to have
So they restore them back
into
Yeah.
healthy homes is
Yeah.
what we're hoping.
Right, right. Well, pretty amazing when you think about all of the crazy issues that come up and how you've changed the trajectory of over 400 kids since the year 2000.
That were adopted.
Yeah, that were adopted and
Yeah.
just new lives.
And some of these women would come to me and because they're in domestic violence, and once I get to share a little bit about my story, they get empowered because they think, well, look, if God did this for you, he can do it for me. So those women will come back later on,
Yeah.
once they have their children back and they've gone back to school, and there's a story that they get to tell me about how they're living their best life. It's exciting because in a way I did get to work with the women, not
Yes.
just the children.
Which was one of your goals
That was
early
one of my
on.
goals, yes.
Yeah, that is so neat. Well, folks, you've been listening to Powell to the People, and what a neat story. Lisa Casarez Austin of Angels of Grace. You have some amazing stories of recovery of kids that would not have been in a situation that was healthy again if they didn't have you and have this opportunity. And you got a lot of people working with you. You've got partners from Rotary clubs and a lot of different folks out there. And Dr. Watts is an amazing example.
Yes, he is.
And I just know that if you're listening today and you would like to donate a few dollars, go to angelsofgrace.com, and we would love to have you kick in a few dollars. If you've got some other things that they need, including diapers and a bunch of things like that, there's never too many of anything. So from formula to clothes to shoes, you name it, a lot of things. Lisa, we're looking forward to the next 400 that you're going to help get adopted. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For what you do in our community. We
do it
really
together.
appreciate it. Absolutely. Partners all the way. And Dot, you and I are going to talk tomorrow about a book, that you've written. So we're going to have a good time with that. Thank you so much for joining Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. We'll see you tomorrow.